So today our main focus is to learn the learning algorithm of sigmoid, and this is going to be a full of math. In fact, you might feel a bit of overwhelming. So what I'll do here is I'll create a two separate branch here, right? One is for those audience who do not want a very math intensive. If in case you are happy with the result, you can straight away you know follow from there itself. But if you really want to understand the mathematical intuition behind it, then you need to be very much attentive. Okay, let me tell you, in any kind of interview, 90% of the cases they won't be going into this much level of math. Okay, so want your full attention. If in case you are stuck somewhere, immediately let me know, because if you'll miss some part, the subsequent part will not be able to clear. Okay, all right. So sigmoid learning algorithm. So we will follow the skeleton that we have started in perceptron learning algorithm. That means first of all we have to initialize weights randomly. Okay, once we have initialized weight randomly, we need to come up with some principled approach that updates W and B, so that in every iterations my loss minimizes, my loss reduces compared to previous iterations. Okay, so this is the step one, where you have to randomly initialize W and B. And after that, what we saw in case of perceptron is, whenever we were doing misclassification, we were updating B and W, right? So in case of perceptron, it was like W is equals to W plus X, W is equal to W minus X, right? So in this case also we have to make the change in W and B, right? But what we are saying that we will change W by a very small fraction, and they're calling that very small fraction as delta B W. Similarly, we have to make an update in B also, right? Because in sigmoid we have seen that it is mainly consists of these two learning parameter, right? W and B.
Just a cap. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay. So we have to make this update in B also. So the small incremental change we will be making, not incremental, I should say, the small change we'll be making in B is delta B. Okay, and we have to keep on making this update until I see that my loss is not changing. So normally what happens is that the graph of loss, it looks something like this. Here you'll have the number of iterations, and here you'll have a loss. As you will increase the iterations, as you'll keep on making the update, your loss will decrease, and at some point you'll see that your loss is not changing anymore. It has reached to some figure which is close to zero, but it is not getting zero, but also it is not changing. That is a point where you have to stop your iteration, right? There is no fixed way of knowing at what particular iterations you should stop. So normally what people do is they set some hard-coded value. For example, they will say number of iterations equals to 1000, and whatever loss they have in that 1000 iterations, they live with that. Okay, so when I say satisfied, it means that that level of iterations from where I do not see any change in the value of loss. Okay, so this update criteria is clear to you. We will see what is this W, delta W and delta B. Okay, now moving ahead. Now, since here there are two parameters which I have to update, right? W and B. So just for the simplification of my notation, what I'm doing is I'm defining another parameter called theta. And this theta is nothing but it is a vectorized combination of W and B. Okay, this will make my job easier when I have to do some derivations. Instead of writing two separate equations for W and B, I'll be just writing one equation for theta. Okay, so this is something which I have defined. Theta is equals to W comma B. Okay, now if you look at the previous equation, what we had equation W is equals to W plus delta W, and B is equals to B plus delta B, right? Now instead of now writing these two separate equations, these two are, you know, they are decomposed into these equations. So this delta theta is equal to vector form of delta W comma delta B, right? So now these two equations effectively reduce to delta nu is equals to delta plus eta delta theta. Now what is this eta? I'll talk about it a bit later, but is this part clear? Theta nu is equals to theta plus delta theta.
Yeah.
Right. Now let's understand from this, from where exactly this eta is coming. Okay. So what happens is, if you look here, there are one vector, this vector theta, right? I'll plot this vector theta. This is my vector theta. Okay. Now what I have to do, I have to make an update on this theta, right? So let's say that I add another vector theta. This is my delta theta. So the vector addition of two vector, it will give me a third vector. This is another vector, which is theta plus delta theta. Okay. Now, since we are saying that we have to make a very small change in theta, right? So in order to make that small change, I need to multiply something here, right? I need to multiply some very small number. For example, if I multiply here 0.01, this delta theta will reduce, right? If this delta theta will reduce, right, then what will happen? You'll see that the shift in the resultant vector will be more toward your theta. The resultant will be also incremental change, small change. Right. So this is what? This will shift toward theta plus delta theta. The reason why I am multiplying my delta theta by a very small quantity is I do not want to take a big step. I want to take a very, very small step, so that I keep on seeing decrease in loss value. So in order to control my delta theta, I need to introduce a very small constant, and that constant is called here eta. So typically an eta will have a very small value. Typically this value lies between 0.0001 to 0.1. Okay, and the only reason we are introducing here is we want to reduce this value of delta theta because we want to make a very, very small change in the value of theta. Just think like in this way, right? You are having a small function, some function like this. Okay, right now you are here, but you want to reach here, right? How would you reach from here to here? You have to make a small change in this direction, right? Then only you'll be able to reach here. If in case you'll make a big change from here, if you jump big change here and then you made a change here, then you made a change here, in that case you might miss this minimum point. You might miss this minimum if you'll make a big change, right? So that is the reason we want to make a very, very small change in the value of theta so that we do not miss the minima point.
So Ashutosh, isn't delta theta itself that small change, right? that small nudge is that delta theta itself is that change. So why we need another eta to further make it small?
Delta theta is a change,
Yeah.
but we don't know how small it is. For example, let's say that if your minima is very far away, right? So what will happen if you make very small change in every step? In that case, it will take too much time to reach from here to here, right? What this eta is giving you, this eta is giving a liberty to you to decide your step. If your point of minima is very far away from you, you can make a big step also. Whereas if your point of minima is small, you can take a small step. So this eta
Oh,
is giving you a freedom to take that step.
so it's like a tool for us.
Yes, it is like a tool for you to decide how big or how small step you want to take.
Okay,
Right?
I understood.
Because this delta theta, it is coming from data part, right? We do not have any control over it, but we have control over this eta part, because we can decide what the eta value should take. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so our learning algorithm, it will make only sense if my new loss, if my loss after update will be lesser than the loss I had in the previous iteration. Do you agree with me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is what I have written here. Loss when my theta new theta is got updated is lesser than loss when I had the older value of theta. Okay. Now let's move ahead. Yeah. So this was the little bit mathematical background, just setting the stage for getting the optimal value of delta theta, delta b, and delta w. Right. So now, if you are clear with this part, the subsequent slide should be a piece of cake for you. Okay. All right. So what we are saying here is, if you recall, this was the equation, it is coming from the previous slide, but now we have introduced another term called eta, which is setting the length of your step, right? Now the question is, what is this my delta w and delta b, right? If I figure out the value of delta w and delta b, then I am done with the learning algorithm. Okay. Now, if you want to understand the mathematical reasoning behind it, then follow the next slide. If you're not really into the math part and mainly focusing on application part, then for now I'll just break the suspense and tell you the value of this delta w is nothing but dl by dw. What is my dl by dw? It is the partial derivative of my loss with respect to your weight vector. Similarly, this is what? This is dl by db, partial derivative of loss with respect to my b, threshold value. Okay. Now we will see how this delta w is getting equal to dl by dw. But even if you don't understand how this delta w is becoming equal to dl by dw, it is fine. Nobody is going to ask you, nobody is expecting you to code this. The framework which will be using PyTorch or TensorFlow, Keras library, they all have inbuilt mechanism for doing this for us. Okay, but this is the learning algorithm we have in case of sigmoid neuron. Just to briefly summarize this, we initialize the value of w and b, we compute y cap with this formula, we compute the loss, the formula for loss is this one. Once we have the loss, what we do is we take the derivative of this loss with respect to w, right? We subtract the result with w, right? By, first of all, we have to multiply it by eta, then we subtract it. Similarly, we take a derivative of this loss function with respect to b multiplied by eta and then subtracted by threshold value. We keep on doing this until we see that our loss has reached to certain level from where it is not changing. Is this algorithm clear to you?
So the delta delta W is nothing but derivative of loss with respect to W and B.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. This is the sigmoid learning algorithm. Now, in the next slide, I'm going to tell you how this is becoming equal to DL by DW. Okay. Okay. So my W is what? W is W plus eta delta W. B is what? B plus eta delta B. There shouldn't be any problem with this. Okay. Now what we are saying that my loss after update, so this is my loss part after update. This loss part will be equal to, sorry, it will be lesser than my previous loss, right? Then only my learning algorithm is feasible, right? And similarly, this goes for my B also. Now these two equation is reduced by this equation, right? And this equation is reduced by this equation because we already told that my theta is nothing but my theta is what? My theta is WB, right? Okay. Till this equation, anyone having any question? Okay. Now there's something called Taylor series. Okay. And this is a formula of Taylor series. What the Taylor series says that if the value of my function is something, right? Let's say that the value of my function at any particular point is W. Then if I'll make a slight change in the value, then how my output will impact. This is given by this equation. This is what a Taylor series says. Okay. So we will be using this Taylor series to expand the value of loss, which is parameterized by theta and delta theta, right? So you can take this as an standard, result. This is called a Taylor series. And we will make the use of this Taylor series for the expansion of L theta plus eta delta theta. Okay. Also, we will not do the expansion till the last term. We will only take the starting to value because the value from third term, it will be very close to 0. That is why we will expand this only till the starting 2 term. Okay. 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 Now this delta theta, I'm saying that it is equal to U, just for the simplification of my notation. Okay. And based on the Taylor series, if I want to expand this L, which is the parameter of theta, and U, it will look something like this. This is coming from the Taylor series, the one which we have seen in the previous slide. Okay. I know it's not really easy to relate, so I would request you to go through this slide one more time and ask any doubt if you have in tomorrow's class. I'll share this PDF with you today. Okay, but just try to understand the flow. Okay, so this is the expansion of my L. Okay, now what I'm doing is I'm throwing this L theta into left hand side, right? So this equation is reduced to this. Okay, now what I'm saying this equation, sorry, the LHS of this equation, it will be negative, right? Because why it would be negative? Because my loss in the second iteration will be lesser than my loss in first iteration. Do you agree with me this?
Yes.
So this is the equation. So this expression should be lesser than 0. Okay. If this expression is lesser than 0, then this expression should also be lesser than 0. RHS
Yeah.
should also be lesser than 0. In that case, only my LHS will equal to RHS, right? So my UT, this is called gradient, by the way, right? This is called gradient. Gradient theta, L theta is smaller than 0. Okay.
What is gradient here?
Gradient is nothing but derivative. So this is
Yeah.
coming from my previous slide. See here, if you'll see the expansion of the Taylor series, what it is doing is in every subsequent state, I am taking the derivative. So LW plus delta W is equal to LW plus derivative of L delta W. Right? So in
That L is loss or that L is derivative?
this L is lost. This uh, comma you're seeing,
Huh?
this dash sign you're seeing, that is the symbol of first order derivative.
Okay,
So
okay.
single dash means first order derivative, double dash means double order derivative, and it goes like that. But since we are taking only starting two term, you see there is only one term which is having derivative.
Just like Taylor's series, right?
Yes, exactly. This is coming from Taylor series. Yep. Okay. Till this point, anybody having any confusion, any doubt?
So if I have to understand it, it's U transpose, right?
Yes, it's
U
U
transpose.
Yep.
So U transpose multiplied by the derivative of theta.
Yes, derivative of theta. And I have defined my theta earlier.
Yeah, but then I mean that L of theta is like the loss with loss function,
Yes.
right?
Yes, it is a loss.
And before that there is this gradient means derivative of that loss.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
exactly. Okay. So let's proceed from this expression here. Okay. Now what I'm saying that if I have to further reduce it, this U is my one vector, right? And this is my another vector. Okay. Now, if I say that beta is the angle between these two vectors, okay, and then by dot product rule, I can reduce this equation to this form. What is my cos beta if angle between these two vectors is beta? This is the formula for cos, right? We have seen earlier dot product. Cos beta is equals to the dot product of ut gradient of theta loss theta. This is the dot product here, and then mod of u multiplied by gradient of theta L theta, right? This is a formula, right? If angle between two vector is beta, then cos beta is equals to dot product of both the vector divided by magnitude of each vector. Okay.
Yes.
So
And a standard formula, like that's how the formula is, dot
Yes.
product by magnitude of the two.
Yes, exactly. This is a standard formula. If you know the angle between both the vector is beta in that case. Okay. So this expression is equal to cos beta, right? And we know that cos beta value always lies between -1 to +1, right? So this expression value should also lie between -1 and +1.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? So from that logic, this expression is coming. This expression value, it should always lie between -1 and +1. Okay. Now I am multiplying k on both the sides. So this 1 is multiplied by k, this -1 is also multiplied by k. So this equation is reduced to this form. This denominator we can knock off because we know that this denominator will be always a positive value. So this denominator will not impact on analysis. So we have just removed the denominator part. Here.
Why it is not going to impact?
See, this denominator will be always positive, right?
Yeah.
So if it is always positive, doesn't matter whatever value it will take, this expression will always hold true, right?
Okay. Yeah.
For do you agree with me here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's why I'm not taking this denominator part here, because unnecessary it will create a visual clutter.
So here you say multiplying throughout by k, right?
Yes.
So that's why after multiplying you have minus k less than or equal to, then k. But then you're not multiplying k in between.
Yes. Yeah. We don't need to multiply k in between. What I'm trying to say here is, if my expression value is lying between -1 and 1, you have a number. You have a number here. You have a number, let's say x, and you know that this lies between -1 and 1, right? If you multiply any k here, which is an integer value, if I multiply by 5, this expression will still hold true.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Right? So that is why I have multiplied k here.
Okay.
Awesome. Now, what we want is, we want this value to be as low as possible, right? We want this value to be as low as possible. We want to reduce the loss in every successive iteration as low as possible. Sorry, as much as possible. Initially, if in my case, first iteration, in first iteration the loss was, let's say, 100, right? In a second iteration, I want this loss should be as low as possible, right? So what I want is this L theta plus eta u minus L theta. It should be as negative as possible. You agree with me?
Yeah.
Everyone? Any slight
Yeah.
confusion, let me know.
So when you say as low as possible, meaning in the second iteration,
Hmm.
the loss should be say like 50, right?
Yeah. Loss should be, if the second iteration the loss is 50. So what this expression will be evaluated is 50 minus 100. That is minus 50.
Yeah.
It would have been even better if instead of this 50, it would have gone down to, let's say, 10. In that case, what would have been my difference?
Minus 90.
Minus 90. So what I'm trying to make point here is, this expression, this L theta plus nu minus L theta, it should be as low as possible. For example, here my minus 90 is better than having minus 50. Right?
Yeah.
And what is the minimum value this expression can take? It can take only -1, right? The minimum value it can take is -1, because it lies between -1 to +1. Right? And when it would be -1?
For a certain value of theta, right?
Yes.
Which is, sorry, beta.
Yes. And what is that beta?
180. Yep.
Yes. Cos beta is -1 if my beta is 180 degree. Okay. So my beta should be 180 degree.
I think I'm confused here. So from where are you getting this part of k multiplying by cos beta?
A multiplying by cos beta. Yeah, this is coming from here itself, right? If you have any confusion with respect to k, you can just consider k is equals to 1.
No, not k. I mean, you're multiplying k with cos. I understood the multiplying k throughout part, right? And then we got this equation minus k less than, again, greater than k. And this equal to this.
In which line specifically you are having?
This, the second last line. I
Okay.
think second last line is what is not clear to me. Like how you equated those three things.
Okay. Okay. Let me in that case, let me uh, explain this in a different way. You agree that this expression should be as low as possible?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right. And this expression is equal to this expression, right?
Yeah, that's not clear to me. How it's equal?
It is coming from the previous slide, right? Let me take you to the previous slide. See, this expression is equal to this.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Right. It is equal to that.
Yep. Right. When this will be as low as possible, this will be as low as possible when my beta is 180 degree,
Yes.
right? So what conclusion we can draw from this is, the if your loss curve looks something like this, if your loss curve looks something like this, okay, where this is the point of minima, okay, and at any given instance of time your loss is this. If you want to minimize your loss, you should always move in the opposite direction of the gradient. So in this particular point, what is my gradient, what is my tangent? It is something like this, right? If I have to draw a tangent, it would look like this at this point. So here the direction of my gradient is this side, right? So I should move this side. I should just move in the opposite direction. Then only I'll be able to reach minima, right?
Yeah.
Similarly, if
So, Ashutosh, so in the equation where we have written cos beta is equals to u transpose gradient of L divided by that norm thing. So if we substitute k there and just cross multiply, so it will be u transpose delta gradient of L theta is equals to k into cos beta. So we will be getting that k into cos beta, right?
yes, yep. This one you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Yes, you're correct.
Yeah, I think that is still not clear to me. Like, from where are you getting this k into cos beta? How is that equal to u transpose?
Can I tell something?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, actually this expression is there, no? -1 less than or equal to cos beta less than or equal to 1. We are multiplying k throughout, right? When we multiply throughout, even cos beta gets multiplied by k. So finally you get expression minus k less than or equal to k cos beta less than or equal to k. Okay. So, and now because you have taken cos beta is equal to nu transpose delta theta something divided by mod and all, the whatever denominator is k itself, right? So that gets cancelled. So finally you are left only with the numerator cos beta is equal to something you written, and nu transpose delta theta and all, right? That's how we are getting k into cos beta.
Correct.
That that loss theta plus nu something n theta is there, right? That's how we are getting k into cos beta.
Yep. That is a one way of explaining. What I initially mentioned is, if you're having confusion with k, you can just take k is equals to 1. Then this expression
No,
will
the
reduce to
confusion is not with k. K, it's clear to me.
this.
The last line where thus you've given this equation, right? That is also clear. But then you're further saying that is nothing but k multiplied by cos beta. Why you're doing that? K multiplied by cos beta. Why we are doing that? That is not clear.
Okay. Yep. So the reason, so your main question is, why are we multiplying k in both sides?
No, not the that is clear to me. The thus where it's written, right? Thus you have given the equation. So the equation where first two part is clear to me. But then you further says it's equal to k multiplied by cos beta.
Okay.
From where are you getting that k into cos beta? That's not clear.
Okay. This expression, you understood this expression?
Yeah.
Right? After that,
Yeah.
what I have done is I have multiplied k on both the sides.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
you see this expression and this expression.
Yeah.
Right? Now,
Yep.
now you can you relate this with this one? Cos beta, because cos beta is equal to this one, right? Cos beta is nothing but
Yes.
your cos beta is equal to U transpose gradient of theta L theta.
Right.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. That is cos beta only.
Yes.
So yeah, okay.
So I'm just putting the I'm putting the value of my this equation as cos beta here, and since I have
Yeah.
multiplied, that's why k is coming in multiplication. This value is equal to cos beta. Do you agree?
Yes, yes.
So cos beta is coming from there, and since I
Yeah.
have multiplied k there, that's why k is coming in multiplication.
You